Good morning, Dr. Gage. This is Adriana for Biology 192. Today we're going to be talking about the menstrual cycle of females and what our bodies go through. So menstrual cycles are the days of the cycle is 28 days. At the beginning of it, day one, this is essentially when our bodies start the menstrual cycle or a period. What happens here is estrogen is relatively low, and that is going to be in the uterine area of our bodies. So the estrogen is going to be relatively low. And what happens is the egg is released from the ovaries and it travels down the fallopian tubes. And while the egg is traveling, the egg is responsible for estrogen and it just kind of releases estrogen to grow. Well, while that egg is traveling, as you can see here, it picks up fluid. It's called a follicle. And I kind of think of it as like being a cyst in a way, not quite a cyst, but it encases the egg encases itself in a fluid. So as it's traveling down, it stays in the fallopian tubes where fertilization happens. Well, this is a 14-day cycle for the follicular phase, and that's the maturing of the egg. And as it's moving down, it grows and it ages and it matures. At day 14, there is a burst of estrogen. Estrogen bursts up, which that bursts of estrogen stimulates the release of a hormone from the anterior pituitary gland, which is the FSH. And with the burst of FSH, LH is also released. And that is the prime, those are the hormones that allow for conception. So what happens then is that with those bursts of LH and FSH and estrogen, your body then is ovulated. That is when the egg is at its maturest, and that is when the egg is ready to be fertilized. For this assignment, though, we're going to assume that there is no fertilization. What happens then is that egg will be stuck in the fallopian tubes, and it makes its way from the fallopian tubes into the uterus. Now, this is where progesterone comes into play, along with the corpus luteum. This is now the luteal phase. What happens here is if there is no sperm to meet the egg, I'm going to back up here for a minute. I'm sorry. So what progesterone does is it thickens up the uterus lining. And so in that, the progesterone is responsible for holding on to the fertile egg. And that without having the fertile egg, what happens is that's produced, the progesterone is produced by the corpus luteum. What happens if there is no sperm is that now egg, which is disintegrates. So it degenerates. The corpus luteum degenerates. And when it degenerates, it's almost like that whole thing just bursts, is the way I like to think about it. And progesterone levels start to drop then, and estrogen starts to increase. So when the egg bursts, it causes the uterine lining to completely shed, which causes the menstrual cycle. So again, progesterone and estrogen drop off to return back to day one of the cycle. So like I said, menstrual cycles are 28-day cycles. 14 days are spent in the moving of the egg and the egg maturing and developing. Then you have the ovulation when it's the prime time to conceive. And then you have the rest of the time is for preparing the body for having a fetus in the body. So when you don't get that, you drop off. And so like if you come down here, this is a really great demonstration of what happens. So day 1 through day 7 is the menstruation. This is when we're bleeding. This is when all that, the extra, the thickness from progesterone and the uterine lining just kind of comes out of our bodies. So everything is broken up essentially in like 7 days to 14 days when everything is taking place. And once we have discharged all of the lining from the metrosome, it starts back up. A new egg has been released, and it moves down the fallopian tubes to wait for mature, and then wait for insemination. So that was my presentation on this project. I want to thank you for this awesome class we've had, sir. Thank you so much.